Welcome to today's episode of Personal with Pangu. Today is not so much going to be fun, rainbow and sunshines. We're going to be reflecting on some negative stuff, which I think is a good thing to do. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Joining me today is not one Prem, it's two. Mr. Premaraja and Mr. Premanand. Welcome to the show.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's a Prem as well.
Yeah, it's like, you know what,
Prem is an elite surname, I'll tell you right now. Anyone that has Prem in their surname is elite.
Like, I remember thinking you
said
both...
D as in dickhead or what? Oh, G. You said G. Go.
I remember thinking both of you guys had the surname of Premanand, thinking that, but I just realised... I think I realised that 2 years ago that Jenna's was Premanand.
That I am a king.
Jay is the king. He has to be the Raja. The other one's a Nant.
I'm a Nant.
Yeah. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Join us on this talk about grieving the loss of a loved one. So it's a very serious one today. So bear in mind, guys, if you need some time out through, whenever you're talking about something, feel free to come off camera or, stay in front of the camera and don't say anything.
No, definitely cry at camera. We need all the tears, all the
I don't have any
action.
tissues, so I'm just going to have to use a t-shirt.
As you do, we're Tamils, that's what we do.
Exactly. Or if you've got sarams, I'm not wearing a saram today. But
I'm not even wearing underwear, man.
Oh, God. Lucky you're on this side of the call and not the other side.
Yeah.
It's not a jatti. What is it, jatti? You know the one with the little...
Komanam.
I can imagine it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, I would definitely wear. That's comfortable. We're talking about the loss of a loved one, and we're talking about me in the Komanam.
Exactly. Fuck it up. Anyways, okay. I thought a good point to start would be to introduce people to grief. Sometimes, people don't really know what grief is. A lot of people, maybe language barrier. That could be one thing, or maybe just understanding what grief is overall. Just a definition that I got from Google that is described as the best definition for grief. I thought I'd just take that. It says grief is the anguish experienced after significant loss, usually the death of a beloved person.
Okay, I
like that. You guys,
like that.
What do you think about that, and what's your definition of grief? Who wants to go? Let's let the guest go first. Jenna,
go ahead.
What is your definition of grief? Just word-wise,
I think word-wise, grief to me is a process. I think that's the best way I can define it. It's a process of having to deal with losing someone that you kept close. This could be a human, this could be a dog, it could be a pet that you've had, that you've loved, and you're having to move on and go on this journey of life without this person or animal that you had.
Damn.
I think
that kind of hard, man.
How I can define it.
Okay, sweet. That you pretty much nailed that. A class, Blinks, try and beat that.
Damn. Grief. Oh, yeah. I say it's just the loss of grief is like it's a pain that you can never really you don't really experience it. Do you know what I mean? Even though for example when in my head whenever you someone's died, you don't really sort of process that they've passed away. Do you know what I mean? You don't really it's just there's a moment of a sort of acceptance. And I guess that's when it sort of hits. But it's just more of it's just that feeling of you're sort of in that limbo between you don't know if they'll be back or, they just, you just try and just live with it, I guess. It's the best way to say it. I came after Jenna, man. How are you expecting me to top that?
No, to be fair, you added a different part to what Jenna said. I feel it's a good way to look at it as well. Otherwise, grief would be called sadness. Do you know what I mean? There's stages to this whole grieving process. That's what makes it grieving, right? But again, jumping from that to the next stage of just talking about stages, sadness, guilt, anger. What type of things personally do you feel like you or most people that you know feel when you think about grief? Like the first thing that they feel. Because everyone
say
reacts differently,
anger.
right? So I thought it might be a good thing to
For
ask.
me, for me, it's first like anger. I'd say, because I like again,
Interesting.
like I'm gonna pull from personal experience. So my dad passed away when I was at 14, 15, and like at the time, you don't really know what you're feeling. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just a shock, right? Like like I said, like you're just gonna have to just say like, listen, this person's not gonna be around anymore. But you never really process that, and I guess it's sort of just anger of like you always blame God and be like, this feels a bit unjust. Like it feels like, oh yeah, nenakku nadakudhu mari. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of that kind of anger, and yeah, it's just all that pain. Is like fuck, like why does this happen, man? Like why is this like happening to me? Or like, do you know what I mean? Like you don't really. So I'd say anger is like the first thing, because you just lash out. You don't know how to sort of get rid of all that emotion, and the first thing you do is just release all of it, right? Before you start processing all of it.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting to hear that. I mean, I feel like that's not the first response I would have thought, as in generally from general people. So it's interesting to hear that's what you're feeling when it comes to that. How about you, Jenna?
Yeah.
What type of?
I don't know. My dad passed away in 2016. How old does that make me? I was around 24 at the time.
Okay. Fair enough.
It was actually my sister got married and went to Sri Lanka on holiday, all of us together. And on our way back, he basically passed away mid-flight. We had like 5 hours left to travel. This was we basically had a connecting flight from India, so from Sri Lanka to India.
Mm-hmm.
He was fine at that point, and then we took the flight from India to the UK. About 3 hours into it, he was struggling to breathe, started taking his clothes off. It was very cold inside. But even before we took the flight, even before he took the flight, he wasn't able to. He was struggling to breathe for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was struggling, he was so obviously suffering from something. My mom took him to the doctor in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, and they said that he was fine. They gave him some tablets, and then he was okay to fly back. So we took their advice, and it turned out that he wasn't safe to fly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it was weird because I'll not go into. I'll just stay on the topic and just talk about how I feel.
Sure.
And we can talk about
what you felt first of all. Yeah.
Because I can go into like how I felt during the moment as he was passing away. But I'll talk about more about how I dealt with it afterwards.
Yeah, sweet.
With my dad, it was a bit weird because I hadn't spoken to my dad for 2 years before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, he was actually an alcoholic. He's been an alcoholic for most of his life. He's had bouts where he wasn't drinking for like a month. It could vary from like a month, 2 months, maybe 1 year. Probably 2 years is the max amount of time where he hadn't drank during my life. So, growing up with him, I'd have to forgive him so many times. Like he would. I remember when I lived in Holland. Sorry, I'm gonna kind of go into the story here.
That's fine. No, you can.
Just growing up in Holland, there was so many times where he would just cause problems. We'd have to call the police on him. They would take him to a cell for the night.
Okay.
And the following day he'd come back home. And I was around, let's say 6, 7 years old, right? And he'd come back home with a bag of sweets. And he would just kind of like give that to me. And I would be like, wow, like my dad's back, he's giving some sweets. I would actually, it's like he was buying my love back,
Yeah.
And when I was young, that age, I didn't think about any of that. So I was just like, oh yeah, it's just him.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, like when I was 10, 12, and going to prison, coming out, it was just a mess. We had to, at one point we had to decide that we had to kind of leave, and so we actually moved to the UK. That was actually one of the reasons why we moved to the UK, to get away from my dad. Just kind of being completely transparent here. So my relationship with my dad wasn't a healthy one. I remember after I finished uni, when I was 21 years old, he had actually stopped drinking for like a good 1 year. I hadn't spoken to him for like a year, but I felt like I feel like he proved himself. I feel like he had actually stopped drinking long enough that I could forgive him, that I can actually start building a relationship with him. So after I finished uni, I came back home. It's the summer, I remember, 2014, and he was doing some gardening work for people. That's how he was making money here and there. I was like, you know what? Let me go help him out. Let me try and build a bond with him. And that was my kind of helping him out with that kind of stuff was my way of building a bond with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like we got really close at that point. Probably the closest I've been for a long time at that time. And then kind of fast forward things, 2014 again, summer, that year, we went to Sri Lanka for my brother's wedding. He started drinking at that point.
Mm.
And it was like, I remember that moment still. I was sitting outside in my nan's garden. It was nighttime. It was around, let's say 10 o'clock. It's nice weather in Pangu.
Mm.
And my dad went away for a while. And I didn't know where he went. But normally I'm always a bit on edge when he's away. Because I know there's a chance that he could be doing something. Like he could be drinking again, you know what I mean? Because it's happened so many times. But I kind of had some confidence in him. I was like, you know what? He's not drank for a while. I've put so much effort into building this relationship. I'm sure he's not gonna hurt us, you know. And I remember just him walking. He just came around the corner. I just remember him walking towards me, and I could see in his eyes that he had drank.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
And had drank for like a good year and a half, maybe more than that. And I just had a tear roll down my eyes. I was like, wow, this man just broke my heart again. And that whole holiday was a mess. I had a fight with him. Actually, ended up giving him a black eye. He had a black eye at my brother's wedding. It was terrible.
No.
But after that, I said I'm never talking to him again. So that's kind of when I stopped. And then 2 years from my sister's wedding, he passed away, and I was like, when he passed away, I actually felt like a relief to me. I had been waiting for that moment for a very long time. I had been waiting for
okay.
Yeah.
That's something what I did not want to hear, but I didn't expect to hear.
I'm being completely transparent.
This 100%.
Is exactly how I
Respect
felt.
that, to be fair.
For most of my life, I wouldn't say most of my life. I would say probably my 20s. It made my life such a mess that I couldn't go to work. It was just I couldn't get enough sleep. That I was just looking forward to the day he died, and when he died, I just felt like finally I'm at peace.
So that's the first feeling.
That's the first feeling that I had when my dad passed away, and I laid it down. It took me a good 2 years before I actually felt like I could forgive him properly, and when I could actually feel some sadness of not having my dad around, and I could appreciate.
I mean, it's understandable. It's definitely understandable, for sure. Like, as in, I'm sort of going off like, oh, sorry, go on. No,
I was just going to say, I'm actually portraying my dad in a bad light, but he's not, it's only when he's drunk, you know. There's been so many moments where he hadn't drank, and he's the best father, the best friend, the best husband. Yeah. You know, he's done so much. A lot of the things that who I am now is actually because I've taken a lot of the positive stuff that he does. Like, he cleans around the house, he cooks. You know, he's not afraid of taking on things that you could characterize as a womanly thing to do.
Well, yeah, bear in mind, like, this is the thought process of a 7-year-old till the time of his, his 20s. So there's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of, ups and downs. So even if your dad's perfect, it'll take you.
You'd realize how human they are. That's what it is.
Be like, no, my dad's an idiot because I can't go to the party tonight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's totally understandable. So it's not. But
really, I guess that's the whole point, right? Like, another thing about sort of like losing someone is, I mean, in Geno's case as well, it's, I guess, like during, like, when he was alive as well, it's like you look up to your mom, like your mom and dad, as like sort of like superheroes, right? Like, you expect them to do no wrong, but you realize they are just as human as you. Do you know what I mean? They make the same mistakes. Like, our parents got married when they were like in their 20s. Like, we're in our 20s now, and look how stupid we are. Do you know what I mean? And like, again, like, I don't think I can ever excuse any of his behavior. Like, that's just how he lived his life. But yeah, I can see how that, like, it would affect you. Because again, like, I'm sort of thinking in the way of, like, you know how sort of in movies they have like this guy who has like a shitty father, and then like when he dies, before he dies, like the father and the son sort of has like a moment together where the father's like, listen, like, I was a prick. Like I didn't really give you the best thing,
Mhm.
and that's just because I was human myself and I just made a ton of mistakes.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies that have that, to be fair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, my last moment with my dad, again being on the flight, we were actually watching. I'm just gonna go back into that story again, just so I can finish it off.
Mm-hmm.
Is we were just sitting on the flight. I was actually falling asleep. Remy, my younger brother, he was around 9, around that time. So it was me on the left hand side. We're sitting in the center aisle. Me on the left hand side, my mom. Also me, Remy, my mom, and then my dad on the right hand side.
Mm.
And I fell asleep. Remy was watching a movie. My mom was asleep, and Dad was he was actually watching a movie. And he was actually struggling to breathe so much that he felt like he needed to drink whiskey to try to help him with whatever the pain or the struggle that he was
To
going
calm
through.
him down.
To calm him down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mary was anxious, yeah. And in my mind, I was thinking, even when he's this sick, this man still wants to
He
drink.
reverted back to that. Yeah.
So in my mind, like I didn't know what he was going through. Maybe maybe he knew that his time was coming. I don't know what was going through his mind. That was last thought that he had. So my mom woke me up and she says, "Oh, can you have a look at that? So something's apa the So I took my seatbelt off, came over, and I was checking him out, and I could see that he almost looked like he went to sleep, but he wasn't breathing. And I know something was off, but I didn't know how serious it was. So mom goes, "Can you go grab your sister?" My sister and we were actually sitting at an aisle right at the front of the flight. We were sitting more at the back of the flight. So I went and got my sister. She came over, and she could also see that something was off. She then called the steward. The flight attendant over. They called out for doctors and nurses on the flight. They took him out of his seat, went to the back, and gave him CPR. At this point, me and my sister decided that my mom and my brother probably shouldn't be witnessing this. So we got him to swap with my my sister's-in-law's seats at the front. So he came to the back. And then at that point, we could see there's about 4 or 5 people, 4 or 5 doctors, nurses that were, just doing CPRs, different things on him. And we didn't know what way it was going to go, but we could know that he wasn't coming back. We could see that they were struggling. He was lifeless. He was limp. And just before they took him out of the seat, actually, he took one last breath, and you could see a tear roll down his eyes. Just one tear. And I don't know if he had some thought going through his head. You start to wonder, like, what was he thinking at that time? Right?
Yeah,
because he's
makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
His life is flying before his eyes, right? But anyway.
Yeah.
So once the steward flight attendant came up to us and said, actually, you won't be able to do anything. The CPR hasn't worked. But what we'll do is we'll put him back into a seat, put an oxygen mask on, and then we'll have a look at him again once we landed. Right?
That's great.
But they didn't want to say that he passed away because they didn't want to freak us out. So what they ended up doing is they put him in the flight, right at the back seat. There was an empty seat, 2 empty seats. So they put him. They had him sit on one side, put the oxygen mask on, and they needed someone else to sit next to him because his body would otherwise just kind of fall over. So I
makes sense.
volunteered to sit next to him for the first 2 hours, and my sister came and sat with him after that. And I was holding his hand, and I could feel his hand go cold while I was sitting next to him, And I could.
That would have been the worst place as well, like on a plane where it's just like there's nothing you could do. You're just trapped in this enclosed space.
Really
do you know what I mean?
Escape.
There's other passengers on there as well. Like there's not much you can do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. You feel helpless. And honestly, man, it felt like a movie. Like, when all the attention's on you, like everyone's like trying to help sort things out. It just felt like it wasn't real. And even once we sat down, I saw people walk past us, right? And I'm like bawling my eyes, like I'm crying. And it just felt like these people do not know what just happened to us. The impact of this 10 minutes that just happened. For them, they don't really care. It doesn't matter to them, right?
Yeah.
But I just lost a father right now. And it was just like, it just felt unreal. That's the only way best way to put it.
Did you have that feeling of like, because for me, like, when the minute it happened, like, in my head, I always thought it would be like a movie where it's like you know how you said the final breath, like, I sort of imagined like, yeah, he would have one last breath where he would come back alive. Like, you would always just expect like the situation to just switch and just be like, nah, it was just his heart malfunctioning, or it was just something that just like went wrong, but then it would just go back to normal. Do you know what I mean? It was just like a little hiccup.
The breath was more of a sigh. So it's like he was almost.
The Sivan Boravali. Yeah.
This is all I've got.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was. There was a bit of anger in me towards the doctors that should have told us that he shouldn't have taken the flight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was a feeling of betrayal.
Yeah.
And yeah, weirdly enough, I didn't feel any anger. Relief is probably the most thing.
The first thing you felt.
The first thing that came. Even when my mom said like, "Oh yeah, you should focus on the good things that he did," my brain just couldn't.
I don't think you'd be able to shape that, right? Because, like you said, for example, like, you're in front of this crowd that's probably like, an audience to you, and even when you have stuff like that, your vision is basically tunnel vision. Like, you're just thinking about what's happening.
Yeah.
You're already struggling to process what's happened. So the last thing that's going to affect you is another person's opinion and people doing anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like, even from my point of view, I feel like in those moments, this is literally just like, you're in it, and like you said, it feels like a movie, and it makes sense. You're like, oh wait, this isn't real. You know what I mean? Like, it's not happening, right? You're thinking, like Blake said, it's something like, oh no, something's gonna happen. Someone's gonna come save the person, right? That's what you're gonna feel. But anyone like outside of that, you're not gonna really take note of them. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, like Blake said, you do feel like, at the time I didn't know that was his last breath. I felt like, okay, this doctor's gonna come. They're gonna do something and bring him back. This can't be the end. My dad, honestly, man, this man has fallen from like a 2-story window. This man was drunk. He's broken his leg.
Damn.
He's basically escaped death many times in his life. So for me, this was like, nah, this can't be it.
Yeah.
Not enough flight. Come on. So it took me completely by shock. Well, all of us. But for me, I just think about my little brother Remy. Like how, imagine being on a flight at 10 years old, 9 years old, and then watching your dad pass away. Luckily, I've
It's
moved
definitely
away.
quite heavy, man.
Yeah,
Definitely,
definitely, man.
Like for me, like I said, I kind of, to me, I already felt like I didn't have a dad, which sounds weird. I love my dad, but that took me a while to get to that point. At the time, I was like, it didn't feel like I had a dad, but I felt gutted for him. Like he didn't get to experience the stuff that we did with my father, that he did, because it was still sitting.
Yeah, and I can always see like the effect a father figure has, even if it's a positive or a negative one. Like, everyone deserves to grow up with some sort of father figure. Do you know what I mean? Just someone that they can sort of rely back on. And I feel like, when you're stripped away from that opportunity, you don't realize the effect it has. But when you compare it with other people, you're like, oh shit, okay, maybe like if I did have a father figure or someone that like was like that, then it would have been different, kind of thing.
No, for sure, definitely. I mean, like, that leads on to the next thing I actually wanted to move on to as well. So, like, having like how it was interesting how you mentioned Remy, like Remy's his younger brother, how his reactions would have been different, right? So, kind of looking at the age groups of how people grieve is an interesting thing as well, because like obviously a young person would really react differently to an old one, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
what sort of differences do you feel like you see around people where, for example, do you feel like young people cope with it better, or do you feel like older people? And also another point to that is, how do people react to people dying, like for example, like a young person dying and an old person dying? So what are the difference that you've seen in your life? Like, I thought that's Blix, do you want to start, or?
I would say in terms of young, and so I'm a very immature person. So like even at 14, Gemini, I was still an immature prick at 14. No, less of an immature prick. Like my sister was like, my sister was like 18 at the time, and she's a lot more mature than me. So I think like for her, because she was a sort of like a daddy's girl, it affected her like education and whatnot. But like you could see like she kind of knew the situation we were in a lot more than I was. Cause like so like for context, like my dad passed away from cancer. And this doesn't make sense. His brother didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't do nothing, but God still found a way to kill him. You know, it was through radiation. So fuck it. But it was just like, yeah. So I think like she sort of understood the impact it will have. Where like I guess I can sort of relate more to Geno's like little brother, where it's okay, like in the moment I didn't realize how it would affect me, because even like it happened in the summer. I went back to school and like I'd be like sometimes the conversation I'd just be like, yeah, like my dad passed away. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like again, like it's not something normal to say, but it's just like I guess when I said it out loud, or like when I'm like telling my school teacher like, yeah, I can't come in like tomorrow because like, we're doing my dad's like 31st dead thing. Like he's not gonna understand. Do you know what I mean? And like the way I just said it was like I say it in casual conversation, and like it was my last year of GCSEs, and like none of my school teachers knew apart from one, because I think I broke down and like we were doing some sort of interview thing, and then it came up, and that's when like this was like the head of year found out and stuff. Like until then I still kept it quiet. So like I think I sort of processed it in a way of like I know it happened, and like it happened, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't have a dad. But I never really processed it, where like my sister, I think it did get to her, and like it did sort of like affect her education a lot more, like just her mindset in general. Because like she's like because she knew what the loss was, I guess. Because like I only process it now when I'm older, and I'm like, damn, like I don't have that person. Do you know what I mean? Like the first time I shaved, it wasn't my dad. Or like first time like wearing a suit, I didn't learn from my dad or learn anything from like a male figure. Do you know what I mean? I had to figure out on my own, or ask my mum, my sister, or whatnot it was. So yeah, and again, I guess like me and like Jenna, like I guess we both sort of lost fathers like in when we were old enough, but I guess I'm assuming like Geno's father was still quite like, I'm assuming he was in his like 50s or later 60s, but like yeah, like even then you're quite young.
Yeah, 52.
How does he?
52.
Yeah, 52. So yeah, like 52, like again that's still quite young. Do you know what I mean? My dad was 39. Do you know what I mean? It's still quite young. Like it's like it feels more of a loss because it's like they still had a lot more to give. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like if it's an older person, you can be like, oh, like yeah, they lived a good life and it was just their time to go, sort of thing.
I feel you.
But
man,
yeah,
when you know when you say
Cut.
about like having to. Sorry, go on.
No, solo. No, go.
That's your...
Yeah.
I feel you when you say like having to figure out how to be a man without having a father figure. It's something that I struggled with for a long time, even when my father was alive, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because we would kick him out the house. I'm kind of just giving everything away. We kick him out the house because it would just be so difficult having him around. That it would just be there'd be like a good few months where it's just my mom, myself, and baby Remy growing up together, you know. And
Yeah.
I don't know how to deal with that. So most of the time I just go out the house and hang out with my friends. But there was a yearning for a role model. I was always looking up to someone or trying to find someone to look up to be honest. Like my uncles. The uncles that I get close to, and I'm like, oh, you know what? These are some guys I can actually look up to. And then they turn out to be just immature in certain ways, and I'm like, actually, you know what? This is not who I want to be. And eventually I decided, actually, instead of me looking for someone to look up to, why don't I become that person that I can look up to? So that was kind of 100%. A change in my mindset, a shift. And that's, I would say, actually worked out quite well for me.
At what point did you feel like you said that to yourself? For example, like, how old were you, or like, how many years did it take?
I'd probably say it took me a while to get to that point. So even at 18, I was still kind of looking up. I'd probably say when I went to uni, just before I went to uni, so I'd probably say 18, 19, around that age, is when I really started to be like, you know what, there's no one out there that I can look up to. it just seems like maybe it's just a Tamil thing. I feel like a lot of Tamil men that I looked up to were just there were just many flaws, and that I didn't want to inherit. If you think about it, with Remy, he actually struggled to process my dad's death for a long time. He just before so just to kind of let everyone know as well, my brother passed away. My older brother passed away in March 14th, so about 3 months ago. But before that, Remy actually started processing my dad's death. I think early this year, he was crying in his bed. He had a picture of my dad in his hand while he was sleeping, and he was just
So was that quite recent? You said?
It was quite recent, yeah. So that was January, early this year, and I can see that I can see that he's going through pain. He has his friends. You can see him having a father, and them hanging out, and you can see that. You can see other friends having a father and what it means to have a father, but not having it for yourself. It's so painful, and I could see that pain that he goes through. So he's only started kind of experiencing. I'm sure he's been experiencing for a long time, but I can only really see the effect of it more recently. And then my brother passed away, so this is a whole new thing that he's dealing with now, which I'll get into in a bit.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
So how did you? What was your process like?
Me?
To try and losing your father and then trying to finding yourself as a man in this world.
I think, like I said, I didn't really think of Jimmy. I never really thought the effects of it. Like, I think I saw. For me, like one thing was like I knew that me and my mum and sister had to stay tight knit, and I say like to this day, no matter what happens, like I'll be like my mum has always taught me and my sister like never abandon each other. Do you know what I mean? Like you see families fall apart, and they're like, listen, no matter what happens, you stick by your sister, and like I always do, and I feel like my sister will always have my back, no matter what happens. Do you know what I mean? And I think I just sort of like, for us, it was like because it was just me, mum, sister. I think we were just so busy with like, processing how the Tamil community like sort of views us. Like as soon as a family loses its like the man of the house, like for some reason the family is viewed as like weaker. Do you mean like again like I was only 14 at the time, my sister was like 18, and I'm sorry to say this, but there was some scummy ass Tamil men. Like I understand why people say men are trash, because it's like I've seen certain men who know like my mum has recently become a widow, and they just came for a chance, like, and I'm just sitting there like you pricks, like you man turn up to family events. And now you're gonna sit there, it's like, and now years later you're gonna sit with your tails between your legs, like acting like none of this happened, like all of this nonsense. And it's just like for a lot of years, my mum was viewed as like a weaker woman. You know what I mean? Like, but even though like she worked, she provided food, she did everything for us, and like we tried to help her as much as we can. So I think it was just more like we didn't really process it. When like, because I think. Like, because my dad, like, I think he was diagnosed in like 2008, 9, I think, and then he passed away in 11, 12. So like we sort of knew it was coming, but he just like, and then like even like the day that he passed away, I think that like 2 days before, the doctor was like, okay, today he's passing away, but luckily he survived like another day or two. So I didn't really process it. But like it was only recently actually, like I just sat there and I went, damn, like I'm never really gonna see my dad again, or I'm never really gonna like ever have the chance to talk to him. Like I can try and imagine what he says in my head, and like you know how they say like in the Kolliva Kravan, like the person will never come in their dreams, because like my mom and sister have always had dreams of my dad, and they have very like intimate moments or like intimate like memories of my dad, where I don't really have that. Even though like my dad is a very big inspiration to me, like he's the reason I want to do engineering, and like there's a lot of things that he does that I sort of look up to, and like he was a role model for me as a kid, but like I just never really processed it. And like even recently I was like, damn, like I forgot how his voice sounds. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's only when I was going through like old camcorder tapes, I'm like, okay, so that's what his voice sounded like. Even though I do remember all the memories, it's just like it just sort of fades away. And I've sort of accepted reality as like me, mum, and sister, and we will always have each other. And like my mum always views me as like the mini version of my dad. Like even like now party now, like everyone be like, oh, kutti sutta, you know what I mean? Like that's my dad, they call my dad sutta. So it's like, oh, I'm like the mini version of him. And it's just like, I'm like, okay, cool, like it's happened. Like you sort of just move on, you just accept it. Which I don't know if it's a negative thing or a positive thing, but I guess like we've just sort of like decided, okay, us three stick together and we just power through. And that's what I think that was just our way of dealing with it, really.
No, that's really good. I mean, obviously, I see it. Obviously, like in Blix's family, like that you guys are together. You know, you like you said, tighten it, and that's what you can do, right? Like when you lose someone, you keep your family close. You try and, I mean, obviously families fight, right? Like you have your little iffies and biffies, but as long as you keep together, care about each other, and that's the part. For example, like, you know, most of the times family only comes together when someone passes away. Me and you had that talk recently as well, so quite crazy. Even from my side of things, now listening to you guys give your thoughts on losing a father and everything, it's just the perspective. Like I lost my brother-in-law, and this was before my sister was pregnant when he passed away, so this was before my nephew even obviously was born. So now listening to this, it's a bit difficult because I always think about like you know, how he's gonna process it once he finds out, because at the moment, you know, he doesn't know anything. You know, he talks about him. My sister, you know, she always like says things about him, nice things about him. But it's just, you know, like sometimes I do sit there and think, you know, when you're spending time with him or whatnot, just think, you know, how is he going to take this news? You know, it's obviously like it's two different things as well, right? So if you know the person and you lose them, you can say you know them, but it hurts like hell still. You know, so I can't justify and understand how he's going to feel. Which is a bit worrying. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and that's why you sort of have to step up as well, right? Like, as in, like you're his uncle, and like, you know, like I think you will be, but you'll definitely be a good father figure to him. Like, you can always show him the way of things and just be like, listen, like as a man, this is how you should live your life. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is how you should be.
I just tend to do that anyways. Like I feel like I just
which is good.
You kind of step in moments where you just and it's quite it's quite crazy when you think about it. It's like
it's kind of I'd say interesting case because he hasn't known his father, because he'll be growing up not having known a father. So it's not something that he's really gonna miss, because it's something that he really had. But when he sees, as he's probably when he's in his early teens, right, he's gonna see other kids interacting with their fathers. And it's at that point where he's gonna be like, oh man, I'm missing something here. So it's only when he starts reflecting against other people's lives when he's like, okay, you know what, I wish I had that.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like he's doing that already now, because I feel like he's at this age where he understands what's going on, like around him as well. So for example, like good example would be, I took him to the park the other day, and there was a family playing, and there was a dad carrying his child, and, you know, interacting. And for him, he has that with me. But, you know, just seeing that, he would just stop and look at them. And I know there's a thought process going in that little brain, but at the same time, I don't know if he's thinking something to do with, you know, dad or not, because I don't know if he's processing it. But yes,
you know, I remember you tell me sometimes where he's always following you around. You know, he's always kind of, and it's like, my brother did the same thing with me. Like every time I came home from work, he's just following me around anywhere I went. And I said to myself, it was annoying at the time, but I also felt like, you know what? At some point, he's not going to be following me around, because he's going to be doing his own thing. He's going to be going out and stuff like that. So I have to kind of tell myself, you know what? I should make most of these moments. I like actually spend time with him and stuff. At the time, I was also trying to live my own life, you know, so it's difficult. But I think the best thing that you could do, like Vix was saying, like you're already doing that job anyway. You're already trying to fill that gap. And I think right now, I think as he gets older, that's when you really have to kind of
be there.
Yeah.
Be there.
But also, your sister is a strong person, so I feel like she may a mother can always step up into that fatherly role, and he may never realize what he lost because he's never really known what he will never know what he really lost because it's like it was never there in the first place.
No,
so like his mom and dad will be your sister. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I feel like I can vouch for that too. I mean, she stepped up. She's she's had to obviously grieve. Her process of grieving was completely different as well. Like it's just a different side. Obviously we're talking about our stuff. Like I feel like that's also another interesting thing. A male person grieving and a female person grieving as well. So seeing that and understanding that is. Yeah, but she's definitely stepped up. She's definitely moving, and she's being that figure that he needs. A father figure and a mother figure. So,
and I think that's just natural. Like stepping up to fill both roles.
You have to, man. It's hard, but I guess you have to in it.
It's like how you said as well, like now you're trying with Remy as well. Like you're trying to be there as a brother and as a father.
It's a tough one, man.
Exactly,
it's a tough one because with me, it's like I'm trying to be strict. Because I'm like, you gotta study, you gotta do these things, right? At the same time, he just wants me to be a brother. He just wants me to chill out. He's like, you don't want my dad.
Yeah.
You're
that recently, didn't
he? yeah. But like, I know that he needs that. I know he needs that discipline, that strictness, right? So it's a difficult one to balance. To try and be strict and then to try and also be fun. But when I'm having fun, I'm like, you know what? I've got to be clear with the boundaries because if he crosses the boundaries, then when I put my father hat on, he's not going to respect me or give me the authority. So it's a difficult one to balance.
And as a brother, like you, I think you're one of the only people in his life that can sort of provide that tough love, like that sort of that little bit of roughness in his life. Like you are one of the only people who sort of has that right, I'd say, to like really like just be like, listen, like if he messes up, just give him a little smack around his head, man. Be like, what the fuck you doing, man? Do you know what I mean? Like,
we don't condone violence and Pangu.
No, it's tough love, man. It's tough love.
Interesting. We've never hit. Since he's grown up quite a bit, like we try to avoid him. He's smart, he listens. He's very emotionally aware, and actually sometimes backfires because he ends up knowing how to talk to. Like when my sister and my brother was around, my sister's now moved to Holland now, but when she was around, she'd ask he'd be like, go to my sister, like, can I go out and do something? And she's like, no. And then he'd come up to me like, can you drop me off somewhere? Like I said, it was okay for me to go out.
Oh, so he lies. That's what you're trying to say.
So like we had to make sure that communication was always on point between.
He knows. He knows how to talk. Yeah.
We'll try it though, and then we never succeed.
Good to know that you're in groups with yourself. But okay, we spoke about personal experiences and stages and everything. From our point of views, you two as well, like, what would you say good examples of getting over this process would be? Like, how would you kind of, what sort of coping mechanisms have you used yourself, and like, what do you think helps you not feel sad and confused? And
if you don't mind me going back to the previous question, because there's a few elements to that. We spoke about the one where a child is growing up without a dad, or us being teenagers, like my little brother or Blake's, and losing a dad, me being an adult losing a dad. I know someone who in 2022, cousin of ours, lost a child. She was still pregnant at the time. This was in Canada, a cousin in Canada. It was winter, it was black ice on the road. The car ended up skidding and they fell into a ditch. The airbag came out and it burst into to my cousin's stomach, and it burst the placenta. Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And that one, that was difficult to watch my cousin go through what she went through. Physical trauma, emotional trauma. There's a lot that she was dealing with, but some of the other, I saw how people dealt with grief in different ways. And my cousin's husband, he you know, the way he processed it was anger. It was just complete anger at the start. You know, because first it was kind of processing, trying to understand what happened, and then switched over to just being angry and projecting that out into the world. And I think it was just his way of dealing with whatever he felt. Maybe he felt some sort of responsibility, maybe he felt guilty, or he felt like
he should have taken care.
Yeah, like it's a kid. He was, you know, he was about to become a father. It was like a month off or something. The baby was pretty old.
Oh God.
So, yeah, you could see that people deal with it differently. And for me, it was actually, it felt alien to me that people could be angry. Maybe because I hadn't gone through it myself. And I was like, how can you be angry? You just lost a child and people want to be there for you. You're just angry at these people. But you know, kind of like when my brother passed away 3 months ago, I went through that same sort of confusion. Like I was like, okay, you know what? I've accepted that he died fairly quickly. And then I was like, just coming back, I felt a feeling of guilty. Like I actually took responsibility of my brother when he was diagnosed with cancer in 2021. So I was looking after him, and I felt like I could have done something to save him. And then that evidence to it, my sister moved away to Holland. I was like, oh, why did she move away? So there was just like, I had a lot of anger, and I'm still going through that. I'm still processing it still, you know? So when I felt anger towards my sister, for example, I'm like, why did she leave us at this point? Why did she have to move? But at the same time, I was able to reflect back and be like, hold on a second. This is the same sort of emotions that my cousin's husband would have gone through. Anger. At the time, it felt alien to me. But right now, I felt like, you know, that kind of makes sense. I'm not sure, like, he would have been devastated. You know, like, his world just turned upside down.
Of course, yeah.
It's frustration, right? It's frustration as well. Like, I guess it's sort of like, there's no closure. Like, death doesn't there is no closure to death. Do you know what I mean? You can't just be like, okay, goodbye, and then pass away. Do you know what I mean? Like, no matter how prepared you are for death, it will just hit you like a brick.
There is
no
second chance, is there?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I think like anger, it can be justified because it's like you were never given the chance to properly say like goodbye or properly to like really let everything out, get everything off the table. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing with like I don't want to compare it to breakups, but I guess like sort of like breakups as well. It's like you don't really get to just like get everything off the table, right? You never sometimes get a full reason to why you guys break up or whatever. And it's sort of the same thing here where it's like, yeah, like you just like frustration is 100% justified because it's like you're just saying fuck you to the world. That's your way of going fuck you world. Why did this happen? Like not even to me, but just to everyone around. Like why out of all random places?
100%.
But yeah,
100%. Like a lot of times I feel like we're playing football yesterday, right? There were these kids coming up and they were annoying us, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But normally I would actually handle like how I would be quite nice. Maybe I was too tired. But I am at this point in life where I'm like, I don't give a shit about most people.
He's like, get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, you didn't say that.
I didn't say that. But like life, it feels like little things. It does feel like I don't really care about certain things about certain people. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I just lost my brother. Sometimes I'm like, you know, am I doing the right thing? Should I be more empathetic? But at the same time, I'm knowing I'm going through something and that I have to just go on this journey and figure things out. But it's just constant reflection, trying to figure out if what I'm doing is right, and trying to, you know, there's always going to be this feeling of, you know, if you lose someone that you love, right, everything else just becomes, life just feels a waste. It's like, why am I even living?
Right? Yeah.
It's like, what's the point of life if this is all it comes down to? And there's many times, I say this to my wife rather, I say to her, I'm actually looking forward to dying.
Damn. Goddamn.
Didn't expect that either.
I know what you mean though, but I know what you mean. I understand
saying.
what you mean. I understand what you mean.
Maybe it's just a guilty part of me that feels that way. But
honestly, do you what aspect of dying are you sort of like looking forward to? Like why?
Whoa, these guys, man.
Yeah.
Totally acceptable.
I think the aspect is I could not imagine a life without having my brother in
Yeah.
my world.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to being able to. Well, I'm not a religious person, so I can't even say like I'm looking forward to being with him in paradise or being with him in heaven or whatever.
Oh, you
I-
don't.
I-
Yeah.
I don't believe in that.
Hmm.
But I feel guilty being alive. That's the best way I could put it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I feel like how can I be alive when he's not here?
Mm.
You know.
Yeah. Fine.
So more so that side of things, rather than
Yeah.
okay.
I would say more so that's it.
But do you not also feel like if you could speak to your brother now, he would be like, I would rather you live on, like you still continue to live your life. Do you mean? And just always like remember me and just have like, have the thought of me and like live your life as, in a way that your brother would be proud to say that, okay, that's my brother, in a sense.
To use that as a drive, right? To actually achieve things. Like
Hmm.
I definitely feel like I get to that stage. I know that that is natural, that is inevitable, that I have to.
Yeah.
You know, like I will.
Yeah.
I know I'll get to that point. So I'll just let that process kind of. I know it's a process, and I'm just going on this journey. I'm just kind of going through it. But right now,
Yeah.
I guess this is the guilty
Yeah.
part of the process, grieving stage that I'm going through right now.
Hmm.
But I mean,
Mm.
even from my side of things, I feel like when I see you, like I can say I'm genuinely proud of you for how you've been. I mean, I know from your side of things, you're probably just thinking, okay, I'm going through this guilty part of or this phase where I'm not where I want to be. But I feel like you've done so much until now. So obviously, like being strong for your family, taking care of Remy, like family aspects. So you're already
Mm.
doing that. And I'm pretty sure if your brother was to look down and say, he's gonna say, "I'm proud of you." I'm happy with what you're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, appreciate
So
it.
I mean,
Mm.
yeah, I should put that forward because I feel like sometimes, like you said, for example, like there will be anger, right, and there will be things that you think about. Like for example, the football thing you said about yesterday. In my eyes, you weren't being rude. In my eyes, you weren't being. You just didn't say anything wrong. You said, "Oh, could you move up and whatnot." But in your head, you're like, "Oh, should I be a bit more empathetic? Should I do this? Should I do that?" I feel like you're digging in your brain and trying to tell you that you're not doing enough, right? And I feel like
Mm.
that's what the other person would have felt. Your cousin's husband. He would have been like angry for what he could have done and angry at himself for not being there, or if he was in the car not driving properly, or do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things to that. So
Yeah, that's
Mm.
true.
yeah.
I'm a firm. I appreciate what you just said.
Of course, don't worry. No, thank you. Well, we just gave each other a handshake. It's making us
High
intense.
five. There we go.
High five the camera, Blix now. 3, 2,
2,
1. Good.
Go.
Okay. Little high five.
I'm a fan. I was talking to my brother the other day, and I was telling him this, right? I'm a big believer in duty.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my brother
Mm.
passed away, I thought it was my duty as a brother to
Mm.
make sure that I, planned his funeral, make sure that his funeral went well. I took that upon me.
Yeah.
No one told me to do this. I was like, this is my duty as a brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Similar when my dad passed away, I was like, it's my duty to look after him, to make sure that he's grown up okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people, I can't generalize this, but I know that a lot of men, perhaps this generation, our generation, because not everyone kind of picks up on that. Like you're looking after, so for example, your nephew, right? You're taking him out and stuff like that. But when I see other people, I feel like we're just like quite unique in that sense that people like there's a lot of people that don't take that up. A lot of people do kind of.
Yeah, they don't step up. They don't take that responsibility and be like, listen, like, there's something I need to do now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys think
I
that's the
know.
generational gap, maybe, or was it?
It could be. I think a lot of people are soft. I think a lot of we're growing up in an environment where we're so sensitive to say everything.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, my dad passed away, so I have to process this, so I have to take this time, so I can't be doing this
Yeah.
stuff.
So
You
the
got-
mental
Yeah.
health side of things, people dive into
so.
that.
I guess so. But it's more like, okay, you gotta take care of me instead of me taking care of you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So it's
I do see that, to be fair.
feeling
I know
entitled
what
and
you
stuff
mean,
like that. I'm not generalizing again, but
Yeah.
I think if you have that feeling of duty that as a sister or whoever you are, for example, with you, Blake, you probably feel like, you gotta look after your mom, you gotta look after your sister. This is your duty as a man in the family to do that.
Yeah.
Those are great traits to have in life.
100%.
Again, I feel like thinking, I do understand the generational gap and people being that way. Again, we can relate it to, for example, how people process things. Maybe someone might be like that, for example, in the moment be not strong enough, or, for example, like not be able to organise things or not think straight, and be in that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
But let's say a few months later down the line, would have been like, oh shit, I should have done that.
Yeah.
Or kind of pick themselves up and be like, yeah, I'm stronger. I can do it. And
now and then be like, now I have to do. And I guess that's the difference, right? That's the difference between responsibility and doing something that you want. Like it's like the grieving and all of that is something you want to do, but the responsibility is like, no matter what happens, like no matter how many minutes go by, hours go by, days go by, that responsibility will still be there, and that will still fall back on you. So like you don't get a choice of, oh, I want to do it or I don't want to do it. It's just you have this thing you gotta do it sort of thing, right?
It's a lot of pressure, man. It's a lot. There's so many times I talked to
100%.
I feel like running away. I'm like, there's just so much on my plate, But I think that's the whole part, because with death also comes a lot of growth, and I think this is also I see it as my next sort of spurt in growth, my sort of next chapter, my new version of Jenna being developed. That's sort of the positive outlook I try to take when I look at my brother's death.
That's a good way of looking at it, man. Definitely is.
Man, 100%. Damn, this got very sad and very deep.
Yeah,
man.
literally. We spoke an hour about sadness and grieving.
It's good. It's therapy. I told you. Personal Pangu is just a therapy for people that want to come on.
Literally. It's that saying. If girls get sad, they go shopping. If guys get sad, they just set up a podcast and start talking about life.
I'm not gonna lie, right? So I spoke to Radha. I'm like, I actually feel like I want to go on TikTok and start making videos and talk about how I'm processing this grief.
You should. Do you know what I mean?
You can, man. Listen, do it however you want.
Yeah, because I feel like when we spoke about this, talking about grief and everything, or losing someone, I thought genuinely from this video, I want the people watching, I just want them to feel like, if they are going through something, like everyone else is doing the same thing, and it's like there's different stages to it. You will, if now you're feeling weak, there will be a stage where you feel, 100%. Stronger, or like
and don't be afraid to embrace it. Like don't be afraid to experience it.
It's a normal thing to happen. You're gonna process it differently, but
100%.
Just it should be spoken about. So I thought
it's difficult because I'm the same as Blake's when he probably was about 14 years old, when he didn't want to talk about your dad's death, right? I'm going through the same thing where when I'm at work, I don't bring it up. When I'm with my friends, I don't bring it up. I'm also like trying to not really even force myself. I feel like if I talk about it, if I think about it, I just don't want to bring everyone into the world that I'm in, if you know what I mean. I'm in this dark place in my mind, and I don't want everyone to have to go bring them into that dark world.
Yeah.
So
because it's like in your mind, you feel like you're just letting out your information, but to them, you're bringing down the whole mood of the place, right? Like, and it's just like, well, why are you bringing this up? But that's just your way of coping with it, man. Everyone copes with it very different.
To be honest, I have great friends, right? Like I can talk to you. We've got some really good friends that I can talk to. But exactly like you say, I bring the vibe down, and I'm in a place where when my vibe is already low, I need to go to someone or be somewhere where my vibe can be brought up.
Like a little boost.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
Get distracted a bit. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I do feel that a lot of people, like how you explained, feel the same thing, where they don't want to bring up something sad only because they don't want to be a party people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, it's probably, if your friends are there, I think it's important to understand that you have the aspect of party pooping, but if you're going to sit down and talk about something that's going to be sad or bring your mood down, it's still a good thing. You're going to come out of it thinking, okay, fine, we spoke about this. I reflected.
Yeah,
For
100%.
example,
100%.
if I spoke to you about something like that, I would come back thinking, okay, I feel a bit relieved as well. You know, most
Yeah.
times I have felt like that. So there is,
Almost like you say, like since my brother passed away, even at the funeral, you've been there for me, man. I will say it would have been very difficult for me if you weren't in my life. To be no, I'm being completely honest. Like you know, we've been going out. We go out play football. I love playing football, man.
Yeah,
and football is the number one thing that I.
He's very crap. I was checking. He's good. Oh, wait. I need to press the football again. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, football is like it can just take my mind off of anything. Like the last few months, right? Literally, probably, I don't know if Aaron's told you, but I've been hanging out with Aaron quite a bit every weekend, every day. We try to hang out. He's like my second wife.
Second?
Second.
Excuse me?
You're the same level.
Cut, camera, close.
Yeah. So we're done with the episode now.
No, but honestly, man, I don't know. Like, I would have struggled. Like, if I didn't have your company, if I didn't have you in my life.
No, I appreciate it, man. And likewise, I feel like it's just, for me, it's like, every day it's like the same thing in the sense that, like, for me, nothing changes. I'm still, you know, chilling with you and, like, playing football with you in the same vibe. You know, that's the point I was trying to make. Like, you know, as friends, where everyone just, you know, you understand, right? And you just, you know, I feel like when you bring out that good side, you just, you chill. Do you know what I mean? I feel like, and even if you speak about something negative, it's good. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
But should we? We're an hour in, so let's quickly talk about some coping mechanism, and then I've got some interesting facts at the end. I want your reactions to it.
Okay.
God, give me the interesting facts, and then does it have to do with coping as well? Does it have to do with the coping as well?
No.
Okay.
The coping is just a topic, and then I was going to close it off with the fact and get your opinions.
Okay, fine. Coping.
Go on.
I'd say embrace it, man. I'd say emotions are there to be experienced and to be felt. You can feel sad as much as you want. Just, you know, listen to sad songs, do what you want. Try not to do like drugs or like any sort of like recreational, like even alcohol. Don't touch none of that. Like, it might feel good in the moment, but realistically, especially if you have like an addictive personality, I don't think it's the best of things. Again, I say this, but watch how like my mum dies and I'm gonna fucking go off like the wrong path or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I can say all this shit.
You, but I'll join you.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yo, man. I'm like, yo, meet me at Wetherspoons, man.
Yeah. Just get on a random boat and just like.
My sister walks in. I'm like injecting heroin into my finger. I'm like, I love it.
Headbutt in the wall and that, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I've been just like Jenna said, just stay distracted. Like even like how you said football, find something that you enjoy doing and do that. And just like I feel like how I kept my mind off my dad was like it was during the summer holidays, so like and we weren't allowed to leave the house obviously, but like all my cousins, like even from Switzerland and stuff, came, so everyone stayed over and like because you had the family there. You don't really realize obviously like there's sad vibes when like, you know, the pool but it's like because you're surrounded by people who also love that person and your loved ones yourselves, like you all share an experience together and you also share that memory of that person together, and like, do you know what I mean? Like you're all there for one reason, and that's because of that one person, and that's sort of like the beauty of it, right?
Exactly,
But yeah, I'll say that, man. Just keep your family close, you know? That's it, man. Keep your loved ones close.
Just based on what you said, right? One of the things that I realized, since my brother passed away, and I didn't even realize this when my dad passed away, but I think I realized is that memories are really the only thing that we have of the person.
100%. 100%.
Start to think like how much it means, those memories. Like you don't have anything else, you have nothing, like photos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Memories, right?
It's just stories, right?
Stories. Like I grew up with my brother in Holland. We went through all these like he's like my best friend, man. Like growing up in Holland, I had my older sister, my older brother, we did everything together. You know, going out, we go steal sweets in the shops, we go bike riding for hours, we do dumb shit.
We still do that, don't we?
We still, yeah. So like I have all these memories that I have with him, and I feel like that those memories are unique to me. You know, no one else would understand the relationship that I have with my older brother. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
100%.
He's the only one who will
100%.
understand. Like if I were to pass away, he'd probably feel the same way. Like, oh, I have so many memories with Jenna, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I just felt like memories are the only things we have. I tell my mom that, you know.
Yeah.
I know my brother's passed away, but our lives aren't going to be here for. We're not going to be here for long either. Like the best thing that we can do is just try to make as many good memories as we can, so that we can leave people with something.
Amen to that, yeah, 100%.
Amen. Aram sevarum man.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. Yeah, with anything in life, I feel like that's what you should be reaching towards, right?
Yeah.
Just good
Yeah.
memories, good people.
Yeah, man.
That's what I find, even from my side of things, when, like you said, like memories, right? My brother-in-law and me, we used to do this thing where we cook together. There's like 2 dishes that we do. It's like a special dish. When he came here and when he was like working and when he was living by himself, that was the go-to dish that he really liked. And he showed me. And, you know, I'll be in the kitchen, I'll be cutting up the onions, but I'd ask a million questions before cutting up that one onion. Do you know what I mean?
எப்படி பண்றதா உங்களுக்கு எப்படி வேணும்
Yeah,
இவ்ளோ size okay
yeah. Do you know what I mean? And there would be a point that I would keep doing that, and he would take the piss out of me, and he would be like, "Just put this, fine." or like cutting, you know, certain other stuff. He would just be like, "Yeah, don't overthink, just do it."
Yeah.
So memories like that, obviously, I keep close to my heart. I have pictures, I have videos that we did. You know, I used to take pictures of the dish and stuff like that, and send it to the family chat, because it brought me happiness. Do you know what I mean? And another thing is just knowing that I could pass that on to my nephew as well. You know, because my sister did say that to me at one point. She was like, you know, because she knew about the dish, so she was like, you definitely, once he grows up, you definitely need to show him how to make it. And I was like 100%. Like, that makes me happy.
100%.
That part of it makes me happy. So for like, rather than thinking you lost something, which is sad, what have you gained as well? So thinking that way is a good way to think.
That's true.
To cope with things.
I have the same thing with my dad. Sorry, my brother. Maybe I feel like a lot of things that my dad used to do around the house, like building things, cooking stuff like that. I try to do it in front of me as well. I'm like, I want you to pick up on the things that I learned from Appa.
Yeah.
So that hopefully you can. Pick it up from me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of life. You just pass it on.
Coping mechanisms.
Let me hear your interesting fact, man. I want to hear this fact that you've got this lined
one
up.
thing I came across, and I was like, I wanted to talk about cultural stuff and how cultural people, different cultures deal with death and grief.
Yeah.
And this thing, in Bali and Indonesia, it says mourning is brief and tearfulness is discouraged.
Mourning is brief.
So mourning is brief.
Brief.
So
Okay.
And tearfulness is discouraged.
Okay.
It says if family members do cry, tears must not fall on the body, as this is thought to give the person a bad place in heaven.
Interesting.
I was like, God damn, like what? You come to your own funeral, or ever since, I mean, the point of the person dying, up until then, everyone is told not to cry, or told not to be sad.
So basically,
give them good energy.
Suppression emotions, basically.
Very basically, yeah. So it's like, it's crazy.
Damn.
And they force it on them as well. It says like they discourage it.
Yeah.
You know, and
but do they do something positive in return? Like, do they sort of like enjoy it and like party? Not party, but
this is what it mentions. I'm assuming as soon as the person leaves and like you send them off to heaven. I think the whole point of it is to send them off in a positive way. And I thought it was quite interesting to see it compared to Tamil culture, right? Tamil people just go crazy, you know, and
I never did about the end.
It's crazy, man.
You know, I don't know which culture this is, but they actually pay for people to come and wail. They call them wailers.
I've heard of that as well. I mean, it's respectful, obviously. Like the way you grieve and the way you send off someone is fine. You know, like in our, I feel like it's the generation above, like the parents and whatnot.
Yeah.
The way they grieve is cry that, well, mostly females and like even probably mostly females. It's so different. Like if you see English people coming in and reacting to that, you can see in their faces it's like they're not used to that because they're used to
take it easy. I'm kind of the same too. When my brother passed away, actually in the hospital, I kind of just let it out.
Yeah. Oh,
But I struggle to cry openly. Not that I'm embarrassed or anything, but I feel like it's a personal thing for me. I feel like the pain that I go through, the tears that I go through, I'm comfortable crying a lot when I'm by myself, and I do that more often. But when I cry in front of people, or when I'm sitting in the living room with my mom, I just automatically just put my hand up and I'm just crying like that because I don't want her to see me. Maybe it's also that I don't want her to see the pain that I'm going through, or maybe try to trigger her.
I think it's a point
It's like,
of you
yeah, that
trying to
chain
stay
reaction.
strong for them as well.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
But yeah, and people do say that, you know, the wailers, for example, that you mentioned. I have heard people say that people cry out that loud to make the family cry and grief, like actually cry, because they don't process it, right? Up until that point, there's a dead body there, and you're looking at it cluelessly. And if people start crying, even me, for example, when I go to someone else's funeral that I don't even know, and someone starts crying their eyes out, I feel like crying.
You feel something, you tear up. You're like, yo, this is real emotion. Listen, I'm padam padde like if this is a real emotion you're feeling. When Bigu's dad died, people were crying. You must have crying for a real thing, man.
It's the BGM, I'm telling you.
But there's another reason why they actually they actually cry so loudly. It's probably the same reason why the Tamil culture you have melangal, you know, when they take them to the grave or to the cemetery or crematorium, sorry. It's because they believe that perhaps if they were to cry loud enough or to make a lot of noise, that he might wake up. Because back in the days, a lot of people wouldn't actually have died. They might have been in a coma, they might have been some unconscious, and there have been people actually that have been buried or burned all over their life. So
then,
one of the beliefs that
I would definitely faint on the spot
diagnosis.
if the person gets up. I'll probably go to Planet X. No, but I see.
That's what happened with the milling though. It's just so loud that hopefully, if this person still has some life, and they will wake up.
Yeah, it is crazy, like to think that there's things like, you know, like people losing their breath for a certain amount of temporary time and
they come back alive
again. Yeah. And it's like, what the... It's just to think that, okay, it's a longer period.
Imagine when they freeze their body, when they freeze bodies and imagine the person's still stuck in there. Like, that would be my only fear. If I was to die, they put my body in the freezer and then I'm like, I wake up, I'm like, yo, let me out, let me out.
Dug in a hole and just in a casket.
No. Actually, what they used to do back in the days, right, with the coffin, when they put the coffin in, they would attach a string.
I'll put a bell. Yeah.
So the person that wakes up.
But imagine the bell starts ringing and there's no one inside.
or you're pulling on a string and the bell's not going off.
Imagine working in the cemetery. You just
money adikala.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
There's a reason why I don't work in a cemetery, near a cemetery, and I don't think I'll ever get close to one until I die. But let's get to that later.
Even that burned me, man. Burned me.
Oh god.
That's a good question. What would you guys? Do you guys want to be burned?
Burn me, put me in a spliff and spoke me.
Why did you put you in the coffin after?
No, put me in a spliff, put me in a zoo. Everyone getting that Blix pack, man. Shit, that's good. No. What you reach the next level, like you reach the fourth dimension.
If I do that, I'll probably join you in heaven. Hell.
Next level of consciousness. Do you reckon people did that back in the days? Do you think that would have been a thing?
What?
Well, they smoked there,
for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that could have happened? They actually smoked up someone's ashes?
Yeah, probably.
If you were
maybe,
yeah.
If you're on some shit.
But I'm not sure what nutrients or what high you're gonna get. Do you know what I mean? What are you getting? The person's soul.
Everything. Vitamin D. Vitamin C.
Everything.
Oh god.
Everything.
You'll be out of this world.
Oh my god.
Hit us with these facts.
Huh?
Hit us with some more facts.
Well, that was one, and the other one was very similar to Tamil way of doing things. This is Toraja people, apparently island. It's in Indonesia.
Okay.
Or it's with
Indonesia.
No, Indonesia as well.
Okay.
I don't know if it's two different.
Indonesian ஆட்கள் மட்டும் தான் அழ மாட்டாங்க செத்த வீட்டுல. என்ன விசாராங்க?
You know Taran is from Indonesia, right? It looks like it's from Indonesia.
Me? Yes. Passport மட்டும் பார்க்காத கொன்றுவேன். They said that between the death and the funeral, Toraja people treat the body as if it's alive, then it's dead.
No, interesting.
So
God damn.
they basically do the same thing as, like, let's say the body will be in the living room, they're chilling,
Yeah.
they're watching TV, and
Manam?
yeah,
Manam varada?
they put it in the freezer, refrigerated box, and some people even probably have them sitting down as well.
They do that. I've seen cultures where they actually, for the person's birthday, I don't think they dig him, but they kind of like have him wrapped up,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a mummy,
Mummy, yeah.
and then they kind of take it off.
I don't know how I
Okay.
feel about that. Do you know what I
Spend time
mean?
with
Like,
Yeah.
Like they actually
It's
like,
like-
hug them and stuff like that.
Yeah, because this one says they actually, they do that, and they put, when they eat, they give the food plates and stuff like that, water,
okay,
anything.
nice.
Like you just conversations, you try and talk to them as well.
புது புது
Which is-
விஜய்
which
படம்
is-
வரும்போது அவங்களும் சினிமாக்கு போவாங்க ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டே ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஷோ
If you think about it though, right? If you think about it, it's crazy how different cultures deal with death, right? It's
Yeah.
just that the idea of not being able to let go of the person they love. We either come up with this concept of heaven or paradise, or you know the fact that we're going to see them
Yeah.
somehow in some form.
yeah
And others just feeling like they haven't actually died and kind of keeping their body around to make it feel like they're still there.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
crazy that a lot of like life, like there's so many things
Yeah.
that we do to try and deal with death.
Damn.
And right, like while we're alive, it's all about kind of dealing with death. You don't really think about it until it happens to someone in your family. Then it really becomes.
Yeah. That's the reality,
Yeah.
as much as it is. You unconsciously do that,
Yeah.
so unconsciously, but
I feel like back in the days they weren't like that. Though. I feel like because you saw death more openly, it was more of an open thing.
more used to it. You mean?
More used to it, yeah. You could see people dying. I mean, like if you think about like the civil wars that we had,
Oh yeah.
right? People would be dying in front of you. It's something that you just kind of dealt with. Whereas to us, it's such a big shock when things happen. It's just
Especially, I mean, good example is COVID, isn't it? As soon as that happened, I was like,
Yeah.
so many people dying. Again, it seemed like numbers to me.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the news, which a lot of people say that is forged and not great. So
COVID.
yeah, from COVID and everything. To be
That's a
fair.
whole other topic.
So that's a whole other topic. We're not going to get into this.
We definitely need to
Yeah,
do a
like-
podcast on COVID though.
Satan COVID. That's the title. But yeah, like interesting to see that as well. Like how people reacted to that, and if you hear 100,000 people died or a lot of people died, and you're like, you're not really emphasizing, right? All you're focusing on is putting a mask on and try and find toilet
Yeah.
paper. Do you know what I mean? Like that's all I cared about then.
Pandemic.
And the pandemic, during the pandemic, yeah. I mean, I did.
I just want to go out, man. I want to meet my friends, man.
Exactly. They were worrying about not being able to sit on the same table and drink.
Yeah, but no, man.
வீட்டுக்கு குடிங்களா?
What was that whole craze about the toilet paper? Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah, because everyone just
Yeah,
decided to
why?
stock up.
ஏன்னா தண்ணி வச்சு கிளம்ப மாட்டீங்களா டாய்லெட் பேப்பர் தான்
Or
உங்களுக்கு
someone's clearly having diarrhea.
Yeah. Isn't that even better? அப்படியே தொடாமலே வெளியில வரும்
Tanya. That big ass you have, Blix. The big ass, yes. It just opens up.
Oh god, I'll beat that out. Anyways, Blix, are you still in your corner?
Don't ask questions, man.
Don't get up.
Yeah. I can't. I go
But-
remain seated for the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, we're reaching 1 hour 20 minutes now. I feel like we spoke.
God
quite a
damn.
bit. I think I need to start closing this off now.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, go on.
We've had some really good discussions though. I think it's so important to talk
100%.
about stuff like this.
Yeah, it was really, really nice having you on. Thank you for coming on and sharing.
Definitely.
your
Thank you for
personal
coming
stuff.
on. You're our first guest, man. Be
Appreciate
proud.
it.
You're our first guest we've ever had on.
Yeah. So again, shake the hand
Hey.
and ready, Blix. High five in 3,
2,
2, 1. Boom.
Boom.
Right. So we've got half five. I heard that as well. But yeah, thanks for being on and sharing your perspective. Hopefully, we'll be having you on again.
Yeah, man. That's
I
good.
said that COVID or
You
something else.
shared a lot more than I expected, and like it was good. There's a lot of
Exactly,
good
yeah.
insight that you gave, which I really liked.
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking about as well. Like coming into this, speaking about this, I didn't know what you're gonna, because we didn't really speak about what we were gonna speak.
Yeah, this
Because
is
I
all-
Yeah.
wanted it to be.
We didn't know how much we're gonna reveal.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight out of feelings. So it's really nice the fact that you did share everything.
Yeah, I think the best that we can do for people is just to be as transparent as what we're going through with our feelings, our
Totally
emotions, our thoughts.
100%.
Yeah.
It's been
Thanks
great.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
Alright.
joining us in this episode. We'll hopefully come up with something nice next week as well, and we'll catch you next
And if you
week.
want free
And
therapy sessions, come along.
yeah, I mean, no, but seriously, if you do want to talk about something like this, about grief, not joking about it, drop us a message.
Yeah.
You know, we're always here. You know what? We're all about helping people out. You know, we're all about being
Yeah, man.
inclusive. But yeah, let us know
100%.
in the comments as well if you want to share something. But yeah, until then, we'll see you next week. Ta-ta,
Nandri
bye-bye.
vanakkam. Bye.
Until when I come.
And cut.
Sweet.
Okay. That was good, yo.